Broadcasting live from our Westlake studios, overlooking the great city of Austin and helping you maneuver through this modern dystopia. It's episode number 242 of Shirts and Skins with Chad and Trey. Coming up this hour at 12:45, the Crab Bag looks at some numbers regarding QBs selected at the top of the NFL draft. At 12:30, Mel Kiper ranked prospects by position. We'll tell you where some Longhorns ended up. And in mere minutes, the CDC and SEC alter their recommendations on COVID. What does it mean for the rest of the sports world? We'll find out. I'm Trey Elling, and sitting across from me is a Waxahachie native and level-headed Aggie who may speak your death into existence if he doesn't like you. It's Chad Hastings.
You damn right. Hope everybody's having a good hump day so far. We are headed towards April. I even had somebody in my presence today. Technically, they weren't in my presence. They were on a Zoom call. But I had somebody reference May like it was already May. I'm like, no, let's not hurry into May. We're not quite there yet. But we are one day away from the NFL draft. That's how quickly April is flying here, Trey. We're one day away from Cleveland, Ohio, and Trevor Lawrence gets a new home, and then we're going to see what happens after that. I can't believe the draft is tomorrow.
Yeah, this year has gone pretty quickly, considering how much 2020 dragged, especially starting in mid-March. Mm-hmm. This year has flown by so far, and I feel like part of that is some of the progress that we're seeing with regard to our ability to bounce back and return to normalcy from COVID.
Oh, I think that's a huge part of it. It's a massive, I think, hunk of it. And I'll admit, I was a little giddy today getting ready for the show because I felt like exactly a year ago, we were letting everybody know the bad news. Mm-hmm. We were telling everybody about restrictions. We were telling everybody. But then with this CDC report from yesterday, my favorite phrasing from it was, we've been telling you all this time for a year or so now about what you can't do. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to tell you about what you can do. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. That's just great. You know, nobody wants to be told you can't go outside. You can't do that. Like when we're all kids in a normal world, that's what sucked about being sick. What sucks about being sick? Well, I can't go outside when I want to. What sucks about being sick on a vacation? Well, I'm sick on a vacation. I can't do what I normally would want to do. And then the pandemic just kind of lays right on top of you and tries to tell you what to do all the time. And now it does feel like we're getting some stuff back. Some life back.
Baby steps, Chad.
Baby steps.
From the movie What About Bob? Baby steps.
It is.
Baby steps to herd immunity. Baby steps to 100% capacity. Baby steps to normal.
If I could go back in time and refilm that movie, I would. I would cast someone different than Richard Dreyfuss. Because they hated each other.
Oh, they hated one another. That's why it works so perfectly.
Cast someone else as Richard Dreyfuss that I would care about and that cared about Bill Murray ultimately, and then film it like it was written. Film it as a drama. Trust Bill Murray that he could carry a drama, because that's what that movie needed to be.
It needed to be a bit darker.
Yeah,
for what it turned out as.
Right.
You know, it's interesting. I spoke with Talib Kweli a little bit earlier for the podcast, and maybe a conversation we end up playing on this show. And he's really good friends with Dave Chappelle. He's actually about to do a podcast with Dave Chappelle, but I was talking with him a little bit about the movie Half Baked and how originally Dave Chappelle and Neil Brennan, who co-wrote the movie with Chappelle, they wanted that film to be more of a dark comedy. And ultimately, Hollywood got a hold of it and did their Hollywood thing and trying to turn it into more of a Cheech and Chong sort of feel.
Yeah.
And it was still a good movie. I think the movie would have stood the test of time a little bit better and is something that's easier to watch for 40-plus-year-old me had it remained a dark comedy versus this slapstick comedy that had a lot more sophomoric humor in it.
I've never seen Half Baked.
Well,
is it worth it?
You're going to need to smoke weed for the very first time with me in order to
really enjoy it.
Or maybe I slip you an edible or something.
There we go.
Like we need to figure out a way to actually get you on that level for you to truly appreciate the movie.
Fair enough. We'll get that figured out. We'll get it figured out. And we've got a lot of draft stuff to talk about today. There's always Longhorn stuff on our plate around here. But tomorrow being the draft is obviously a big focus. We'll get to a lot of that. But I think it all ties together with sports because these new CDC guidelines that came out yesterday, everybody is discussing them. I know it's trending heavily on social media, but the basics, Trey, are that they had this little chart that came out, but the basics are that if you have been fully vaccinated, among other things, you should feel comfortable without face coverings outside with other small groups, even when it's unclear whether those others have had shots. But they have this outdoor safety guideline chart that's out there. If you are a fully vaccinated person, they are saying you can dine at an outdoor restaurant, attend a small outdoor gathering with fully vaccinated and unvaccinated people. So they're starting to lay out different things about if you're fully vaccinated, what can happen. And, of course, the definition from the CDC of fully vaccinated is 2 weeks beyond the last shot. So if you have the one-shot version, it's 2 weeks past that. If you have a two-shot version, it's 2 weeks past your second shot.
Welcome to the party, CDC. Pun intended there. This is something that's been pretty common knowledge going back 6 to 9 months now, that if you are outside, especially if you aren't in an enormous crowd of people, you're okay doing some of these things. Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, I get why it takes the CDC longer than maybe even the research suggests to come to this conclusion, but they have been a bit slow-footed, in my opinion, on things like the need to supplement with vitamin D. Like, they found out early on that people who were dealing with the worst symptoms and some of the most lethal symptoms at times had really low levels of vitamin D when they ended up in the hospital. And so for a long time now, it's been known, yes, supplement with vitamin D. That's going to help to protect you against COVID if you do, in fact, get it. Well, the CDC finally put that amongst their guidelines. They didn't do so until like 2 or 3 months ago. So I'm glad they're willing to take this step now. And ultimately, when the CDC starts giving thumbs up to things like this, that's when you know we're entering a better phase of this pandemic.
Yeah, and it was a good feeling for me just to see. I think I saw an NBC report of it. But the fact that, throughout this whole process, it's felt so unorganized sometimes about who is it that's going to be distributing the information, how will it be distributed, and then as it is changing, as we are learning more and more, how are we going to transmit it to the people? That's the wrong word. How are we going to communicate it to the people and have them trust the process that is going on? Because sadly, we've come out of this and there's all kinds of people that don't trust a word that comes out of Anthony Fauci's mouth. They do not trust the CDC. And every time they hear the letters, they just roll their eyes because somehow we've figured out a version of this where they don't care. There's a ton of people, I guarantee you, that had absolutely no care about that yesterday and just thought, okay, well, whatever. They're just trying to catch up to what's going on. Like, there's a lot of distrust out there. I'm hoping something like this can be a good thing.
Yeah, worst crisis management in human history. And look, Fauci has himself to blame for that. I mean, he was saying back in, I want to say it was March or April, that face masks weren't necessary. And then he walks that back a month later and he says, well, they're actually necessary. But the reason why I was saying they weren't necessary is because we wanted to make sure that medical professionals had enough face masks. Well, okay, that's fine. That's an okay explanation. But you've just admitted that you lied to us. Now we have to take everything else that you're going to tell us going forward with a grain of salt. Is there some sort of ulterior motive for you, whether you consider it to be a good thing to help the medical profession or whatever else? As soon as you start lying to people, what do we talk about in life, Chad? Relationships, anything else? As soon as you jeopardize that trust, the whole relationship is screwed. And so for a lot of people, they've heard Fauci say things that he has had to admit that he was lying about or that he has had to walk back, and they just take everything else that he's saying with a grain of salt while still hopefully doing some research on their own to see the various directions that this whole thing is trending in. Like I was telling you it wasn't a couple months ago, I think it was about a month ago, something that is now surfacing on Twitter. That is one of the most popular trending topics on Twitter. And that is, research is now showing us that if you're fully vaccinated, you are significantly less likely to even transmit COVID.
Right.
Much less catch the virus, deal with serious symptoms. You're not even going to be giving it to somebody else at this point.
Which is awesome news.
It's fantastic news. Why has this not been promoted a little bit more over the last month? Same goes for people who have caught COVID, the likelihood of you getting it again and transmitting it goes way down. Now, unfortunately, with that one, I get why that has not been promoted more, because there are people that are going to try to exploit that. But at the same time, that is also really good news. That speaks to this idea that we can maybe find our way back to normalcy at some point this summer or early fall.
Yeah.
And even Anthony Fauci himself, by the way, has said that he feels like people will be going to movies without masks by late fall, early winter.
Yeah, and he made a comment some people have had a little fun with the last day or so. He was on an interview and was asked about pickup basketball games, and he said, "Hey man, if I'm vaccinated and you're vaccinated, we can go play a pickup game tomorrow. I'll destroy you, but that's another issue." So like he's getting to the having those kind of discussions and those kind of comments, which I think is good. And then for our purposes in sports, I think the other thing that's going to start happening, Trey, is the discussion of sports and vaccinated people. Now, there probably needs to be a discussion about sports and people that have had COVID and the whole antibody discussion, because I don't know if that's really gotten to a point where anybody's in some full agreement. We need to find some full agreement and get it out there.
He is T cells.
But and it also is person to person a little more. So that, like, how do they deal with that? How do they deal with, say, your ability to have antibodies after getting COVID versus mine? How similar are those two things? They've got to work on all that. But with the vaccination stuff, we're already starting to see it in some pro sports, and now it's now it is transitioning into college sports. We have a Power 5 conference that has decided they're going to change some of their protocols if you're fully vaccinated. And that conference is the SEC. So far, the other four have not officially made a comment, but moving forward, the SEC will not require fully vaccinated individuals who are asymptomatic to participate in league surveillance testing program according to the updated version of their protocols, as long as they have approval from local health authority, obviously. Fully vaccinated SEC staff and players also will no longer have to quarantine following exposure to someone with COVID-19. The Sun Belt Conference, I believe, is also following along to basically those same kind of updates. So this is the question I asked you weeks ago about Coach Sarkisian and his team, Coach whoever you want, Orgeron and his team, Coach Saban and his team, and et cetera. Are those players going to be encouraged to get vaccinated, and then can they give them something on the other end to say, fellas, if you get vaccinated, here's what we're going to relax. I like the way this feels, at least, to give that option. If the player's comfortable with it, hey, man, if you do this, those swabs up your nose and the idea that you have to quarantine because of a stupid pizza party, like that all goes away.
Well, I think it all ends up going away regardless at some point. Like when we get to the point where, and I feel like we're maybe a month away from this, where Biden and government officials have said by June 1st, if you want a vaccine, you will have had the opportunity to get a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get to the summer, it's either you're vaccinated and you don't really have to worry about it, or you've had it and you most likely don't have to worry about either. Or if you're neither of those things, you are taking that risk right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, free will is a beautiful thing, and free will comes in all sorts of different forms. And free will is what eventually is going to allow us to see full stadiums on a consistent basis and less swabs up the nose and less blood tests having to be taken and things like that.
So if I'm not mistaken, I saw an updated stat yesterday. I think it is like 37% of the United States, the estimate is, have been vaccinated, are fully vaccinated now. And
they're moving the they're moving the first down line on us now too, by the way.
Oh, because they're counting just one shot.
Well,
on some of those. Is that right?
It's not just one shot. What they're moving the line on us is now, like, it's just so funny to watch this play out over the course of 13 plus months. Now they're saying what originally was supposed to be herd immunity has gone from I forget what the exact numbers are. It's like 60 to 75%. Now they're saying, well, actually, it needs to be closer to 75 to 90%. So even that is changing a little bit now. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, how authentic is this, or is this some sort of funded study that is suggesting that we need this higher number to make sure that they're maximizing their own profits.
So the other percentages that are interesting to me, the NFL has already relaxed some of their stuff for COVID, kind of like the SEC stuff. It is you don't have to do quarantine, you don't have to do all the testing if you are fully vaccinated. And then,
which is interesting because the St. Louis Dispatch put a story on their front page, I want to say within the last week, that said, oh my gosh, 71 people who have been vaccinated have ended up testing positive more than 2 weeks after receiving that second shot. But if you look at the fine print, it's like the Johnson & Johnson blood clot issue, where it's like a very small percentage of people who have received the shot are suffering from blood clots. So is that a canary in the coal mines, like when women were taking hormone therapy back in the 1960s at way too high a doses, or are these true one-off cases? So the St. Louis Dispatch puts this number 71, which sounds like a high number, but when you consider it's like 71 out of a million or 71 out of several hundred thousand, it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, the other number I thought was interesting, I think I read up to like 70%. Rob Manfred got this number out. 70% of baseball is vaccinated right now.
Good.
70% of players, staff, people that are, because that's my concern for sports. First level is let's get the people that we are asking to go in and out of these venues every single day and travel, because we're going full travel, right? In all the sports, there's no more bubbles. NBA's full travel, baseball's full travel. There's not really a bubble world in sports right now.
As a matter of fact, Adam Silver was asked in the last couple of days, are they considering a playoff bubble? And he said, no.
Right.
We're actually over 70% vaccination right now. We're okay.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic numbers going in. So we'll continue to watch that story. Do the other Power Fives, continue to change their protocols? How does that go? And then we do need to get to this overall question for those of us that would be fans in the stands. If you're fully vaccinated and you're beyond your second shot, 2 weeks beyond, and the science says you're 95% protected at that point, they're getting you to 95%, given and getting. So give me, what's the danger of me, if I go in and sit down and I'm fully vaccinated, if the person a row ahead of me wants to walk in not vaccinated at all and thinks it's all garbage and thinks the CDC lies to people and thinks that the vaccine might have something in it they don't want in their body, like a microchip to follow them or something else, and they have every right to think that. What is the problem with me and that person going to the same football game? What is the issue with me and that same person going to a concert? If I'm 95% sure I'm not giving it to him, and I'm 95% sure he ain't giving it to me, what's the issue? That's what I'm trying to figure out, Trey.
I don't understand. Like, people like to be scared into submission is probably the rude answer to give there, but some people like to live under that veil of fear, and once you submit to that, it becomes very difficult to emerge from that. It's why I've spoken with people literally in the last couple of months that are like, yeah, I pretty much did not go anywhere over the last year, and I finally got vaccinated, so now I'm comfortable getting back out there again. It's like, really? You allowed yourself to be scared into not leaving your house for 12 months except to maybe go pick some groceries up via Instacart at H-E-B? Like, man, like I understand there was a seriousness to COVID, but to allow it to just shut down your life for an entire year was very unnecessary. And I know I'm going to have people on the text line that are upset with me saying that I'm passing faux science off and yada, yada. Look, I read what I'm talking about before I go on the airwaves with these things. And a lot of what I've talked about and a lot of what I've taken criticism for, including from some of you people.
What do you mean, you people?
Hardest critics right now are things that others, including the CDC, are starting to agree on now. So just because they're slow to get to that point does not mean what I'm saying. And because what I'm saying is disagreeable with how you believe about things, it doesn't mean it's an ill-formed opinion. It just means that I have a different set of beliefs than you do. And there are things that I've looked at and things that I've gone through personally that have led me to certain conclusions. And so, welcome to the party now. You can now go outside without a face mask on because you're vaccinated. like a lot of us have been doing for the last 6+ months.
Yeah, CDC throwing out some new stuff yesterday. A lot of people are excited about that. And judging from the text line, a lot of people didn't see it as a change of anything. But however you want to react to that, it could have an effect on the world of sports, and we will hope that it continues to do that. And now the big thing is going to be once we get to summer, once we get to the start of what's it going to be like September 4th. I saw a story today, Trey, that the state of Louisiana has said they'll go 100% out in their outdoor venues this weekend. Like, I guess
the state of Louisiana, okay.
Yeah, that they're going to, I don't know if it's, well, to be fair, let me double check this. Is it the state or no, LSU, my bad. LSU is going to allow 100% capacity in its outdoor stadiums beginning this weekend, which would lead you right to baseball and their famous, stadium there. And I believe that is, Alex Box Stadium in Baton Rouge. I don't know what the capacity is, but the idea would be that they're going to be full and ready to roll for the next, home series, which is awesome news.
Look, the state of Florida, America's most flaccid member, has been fully open since September. And we haven't seen this disaster on a grand scale in that state. That should tell you something right now of just how ass backwards this whole thing has been. That Florida has been at the forefront of taking risks, and maybe it was taking risks a little bit too soon, but they took that early risk, and it paid off for them. Texas was not too far behind, although it was several months. It was not too far behind versus some other states. Texas has not suffered this great tragedy as a result of Greg Abbott saying, look, the state is not going to keep things shut down anymore. You have the right, if you want, to go 100% capacity. We're going to leave it up to municipalities and individual businesses to make that decision.
Yep. A lot of stuff going on with that. Hopefully that leads to even more good news in the world of sports. But the SEC and the Sun Belt have jumped out ahead of that and relaxed some of their protocols. Again, now it's to the issue of the players themselves. Players and staff members, do you want to get vaccinated? If you do get fully vaccinated, they're going to relax some of those protocols, and then we hope there's additional discussions that go on after that. We'll continue to talk about that story. Obviously, a lot of reactions on the Specs text line, as you can imagine. 337-3776. Let us know if you have thoughts on that. Coming up at 1, our weekly conversation with Justin Wells of Inside Texas. You heard Justin on Friday helping Trey preview the spring game, but we haven't heard his thoughts since the spring game. We'll get that coming up at 1. Crap bag a little later with some info on the draft and quarterbacks going early. And up next, we'll talk some NFL draft, including Mel Kiper's rankings by position. Where does he have Sam Ehlinger and Osai and the other Longhorns ranked at the positions? We will let you know. Don't move. It's the Horn.
Shirts and Skins.
Getting rolling on a Wednesday. Trey, what do you got?
This is Weezer. I need some of that. It's part of the release radar from this last Friday, and because I was in the studio on Monday hosting with Joe Cook, yesterday was a shameless podcast promotion Tuesday, we're deciding to do New Music Friday on a Wednesday this week, Chad.
New Weezer is out there. They feel like they've been one of those real productive bands or artists during the pandemic.
Yes.
I feel like Weezer was working.
Some might argue too productive.
Well, this is how they deal with a pandemic. Some people go into hiding and maybe come out with an album, but some maybe come out with, 4.
Mm-hmm.
Never know. They're going to double their catalog on us. You just watch.
Yeah, and they're probably going to do for some pretty straightforward covers in that time, too.
They did get into some straightforward covers on the Teal album? Is that what that was, the cover record?
Yes, I think it was Teal. You're right about that.
But if I'm not mistaken, they just gave it to everybody. It was free. I don't think they made you pay for it. But some of those covers...
That's true.
Wild. That's a band I've never seen live. I'd like to see Weezer live. Speaking of concerts, Trey, we were talking about... how the world of sports could be once we get to the season. I as an example, have concerts that were rescheduled, and I've got 2 coming up in August, and I also have one in October. What I don't know is how it will be set up. I'm assuming that's not socially distanced. I'm assuming that's not 25% capacity. Is that your interpretation? If somebody's going to a show, I think they're both in August. I think they're Houston shows. So, like, if I'm going to these shows, is my expectation is that maybe we get a full house? Like if they sold the tickets?
Maybe.
That'd be cool.
That's possible.
The new CDC stuff is what we were discussing at the top of the show. I know a lot of people are getting into that. What the CDC is now saying about fully vaccinated people, who they recommend you might be able to hang out with or not hang out with. If you haven't been vaccinated, what they would recommend there too. So it does feel like things are headed back to normal. I know for a lot of people they've already been pretty much normal, but however it is that you make yourself feel safe and you make yourself feel as normal as you can, do that.
I avoid the text line like I avoid Twitter these days, especially when I start talking about COVID, because, well, I will get some people that appreciate what I'm saying. There are also plenty of people who get upset at what I'm saying because it goes against their set of beliefs or the narrative that they've been spinning for the last 13 plus months now. But taking a quick look after this last segment, Chad, thank you to everybody who is responding, both positive and negative. It is amusing to me, those who did choose to be shut-ins for the last 13 months getting upset that I'm saying that you made a mistake by doing so, that it was definitely getting caught up in the fear-mongering element of it all and not truly understanding what was happening. Now, there are exceptions.
Sure.
If you are in the
some people, yeah.
If you're in the chronically sick category, the chronically obese category, or the really old category, which are the 3 groups of people who were ending up dealing with the most serious version of this illness in most cases. I know there were rare exceptions, but in most cases, if you are not in one of those 3 categories of people and you remain shut in for the last 13 months, I'm sorry, you read the situation poorly. And you can get upset with me for saying that, and you're well within your right to stay shut in for 13 straight months to avoid what you perceive to be a larger issue than what it actually was. But when it was all said and done, there were a lot of people who, were distancing more, were wearing masks in public, were being a little bit more sanitary in terms of washing hands and things like that, but did not shut their lives down for more than a year that turned out to be on the right side of things. It's just the facts right now. I'm sorry that if that upsets you. And by the way, please stop telling me to stop sharing my opinions on the air. That's what this job requires me to do. I have to share my opinions. That's what we do in part of our back and forth. And ultimately, Chad and I are trying to have conversations that elicits a response. So I'm sorry that my response, or that what I'm saying is eliciting a negative response out of you, but that's what this gig is. And the great thing about that is you have free will to tune me out. You should still listen to Chad to tune me out and not let me get to you. You shouldn't let me get to you. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot who's talking on the air on a sports radio show about a pandemic. Thank you.
I specifically agree with that last minute or so. By the way, if you have been shut in for 13 months, we hope you've been shut in maybe a little bit with us here on The Horn.
Hopefully you're choosing to play The Horn Austin on Alexa.
Darn right.
Smart speakers.
Tell Alexa, play The Horn Austin. Yeah, The Horn Austin also gets you the app, and we're glad you're with us. We're glad you're with us on Twitch. If that's how you're doing it, hornfm.com. You can now check out the Twitch channel. And yes, hopefully getting towards a more normal sports world. And of course, whatever your thoughts are, agree or disagree, we always like to see, well, we don't always like to see it, but we always encourage it on the Specs text line, 337-3776. Remember, if nothing else, you might be freaking Trey and Brad out each and every day during our show and the triple option. So that's worth a text. That's worth a shot.
Say that again?
They may be freaking you or Brad out with their text. I think that's a reason to text. Might freak you out.
Well, so
you could freak them out, then they'll freak you out.
I hate this because I've taken the BK route on the text line because I'm doing too much back here in the control room now that it's just one of those things that's low priority for me. I usually love the text line, and occasionally it will distract me, but I dig a little bit of the negativity too. I'm okay with that. It's just It's just frustrating to me when it's like, stop sharing your opinion on something. That's what this job is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't even know. You may be seeing the different text that I'm seeing. Every text I look at, you are apparently a prophet. You are the man. Agree. Preach it, boner. Oh, they should have said that differently. But yeah, apparently you are the voice of the people. So I don't know what you're reading in there. You may be getting just text from your friends and family, but the people seem to really be digging you today. And we were talking CDC stuff, and we'll continue to do that. Also, we've got the draft coming up tomorrow. Cannot wait. Man, you talk about something that'll make me feel normal, Trey. I'm not going to speak for all of our guys, but me going out to 183 and Burn It tomorrow to Pluckers, I don't know what I'm going to do the first time somebody walks up and says, hey, man, what's going on, man? Really dig the station. Like, that's part of how I exist. That was part of my oxygen before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And to get to hang with the folks again, to the idea that, like, you know, maybe Michigan Dan and Little Kev and Tavo and Michelle and all of these different great fans of ours are going to show up maybe at a Pluckers and say hi and have some food and watch the draft. I'm so excited about tomorrow.
Yeah, show up to the Lakeline Pluckers tomorrow. I'm probably going to have somebody looking to either fight or shoot me before the night is over with.
No, you don't want that.
I don't want that.
You don't want that.
But hey, look, you could be in for some good drama tomorrow night.
If you can come out and make the GM picks correctly, you could get the whole house a special at Pluckers. So come on out and join us for that. And we'll also have the draft coverage for you right here on the Horn. The Dallas Cowboys Radio Network broadcast 7 to 11 tomorrow. We're going to have Ari Timken on from the Cowboys Radio Network tomorrow at 1. We're going to have John Harris on from HoustonTexans.com tomorrow at 2. One of our favorite football guys. You hear him on the station a lot. We're going to get those breakdowns tomorrow as well. And speaking of breakdowns, Trey, I found the Mel Kiper position-by-position breakdown. If you are behind the ESPN Plus wall, you can check this out. I pulled up the quarterback rankings here. I just wanted to kind of see, where does he have Sam Ehlinger ranked? Maybe for the the Aggies listening. Where does Kellen Mond fit in? Those kind of things. First thing interesting, though, Mel Kiper has Justin Fields ranked above Zach Wilson. He thinks he's the second best quarterback after Trevor Lawrence. Interesting.
That's fascinating because there's an argument right now of whether he's 4 or 5.
I know.
In a lot of circles.
And you and I were also taking a peek, if you missed the Chris Sims last mock draft that came out, Sims has Justin Fields going to Tampa at 32. And I'm with you.
Tampa's not taking a quarterback at 32.
I wouldn't think so. But then also, he's not falling anywhere near that. Come on.
No. I mean, it's like that mock draft that we saw a couple months back that had Penei Sewell falling to like 12 or something.
Right.
Like that was a cute idea. That's not happening, though.
I don't think that's happening either. So that's an interesting ranking. So he's got Lawrence Fields, Zach Wilson, then Mac Jones, then Trey Lance. That's how Mel Kiper is ranking the top 5 right now. Then you slide down a little bit. He's got Kyle Trask at 7, Kellen Mond at 8, Sam Ehlinger at 11, right below Felipe Franks, just to give you a comparison, and Trey right above Shane Buechele from SMU. Now, come on. Did Mel's people do this on purpose? That's pretty good. Putting Sam Ehlinger and Shane Buechele right next to each other? Come on.
Sam Ehlinger below Felipe Franks? Really?
Yeah, how about that?
Mel Kiper? That's incorrect.
Below Jamie Newman as well from Wake Forest in Georgia?
You haven't seen anything out of Jamie Newman in the last year because he opted out this last season.
Yeah, that one's a potential over everything else because we just haven't seen, you're right, we haven't seen enough of him.
Considering how much you've watched both guys over their 4-year college careers, and they did start games as freshmen on through seniors. Mm-hmm. Who would you have ranked higher between Kellen Mond and Sam Ehlinger?
I would have Kellen ranked higher.
Okay.
I'd have Kellen ranked a little higher.
Why?
But because I think his ceiling as an NFL player is a little bit higher than Sam's. Both their inconsistencies worry me. Both of them do. I don't think either of them is a consistent starting quarterback in the NFL. I want to be wrong both times. I'm one of the few people that's watched every snap each one of them have taken. But there's a little bit based on some of the throws that I've seen Kellen Mond pull off. Now, his ability to do it enough, that's another issue.
Consistency.
I haven't seen Sam consistently pull off as many big-time NFL throws as I've seen Kellen pull off. And it's close, but I'll go Kellen and this ranking makes a little bit of sense. Like it's 8 and 11. Yeah, something like that. Back into the top 10, into the 15. I think that kind of makes sense. But so I'm hoping for both. I dig both of them, but the consistency worries me for both guys.
Maybe I'm missing something with Davis Mills, but the little bit that I watched at Stanford last year, I was not at all impressed with him.
I literally didn't know who that was when I read the name. I must not have seen Stanford play at all.
That's the other thing. He had
I don't know who he was.
He had zero hype when the season ended.
Yeah, and he's got him at 6, by the way, between Trey Lance and Kyle Trask in this draft. So Sam Ehlinger ranked number 11 among quarterbacks. Just to give you an idea of how many guys might have to get drafted at quarterback before Sam would go off the board, that's something to keep in mind. So watch names like Mond, Newman, and Franks. Mel Kiper says those are the 3 quarterbacks that will be drafted before Sam Ehlinger. We'll see how that goes once tomorrow night rolls around. More draft talk coming, of course. In fact, I'll throw a little in the crap bag today. How many times has a quarterback gone 1, 2, 3 in the draft? Because it may very well happen this year. And has there ever been a draft where it has been 4 quarterbacks to start the first round? We'll dig into those numbers coming up. And at 1 o'clock, it's our weekly conversation with Justin Wells of Inside Texas. Don't move. It's the Horn.
Shirts and Skins with Chad and Trey.
She told me she loved me about 10 times a day. She said that she would die if I ever went away. Then I got this letter, cut just like a knife.
New music for you on this Wednesday from late last week. What do you got, Trey?
Van Morrison, Love Should Come With a Warning.
That's weird. That doesn't sound like him to me.
No, it doesn't.
It's a little different vibe. Sound like it was a good start to a song, though.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. Real cool, little bluesy feel there. New Weezer from last Friday. Van Morrison's got some new stuff as well. There's got to find the positives of a pandemic, and a lot of the musicians have been very prolific in this time. Remember, today is your final Randall's ticket window opportunity. If you're a Texas baseball fan, boy, what a season you are having. They still haven't lost their 10th game. And today you'll get a crack at Friday tickets for the Texas Tech series coming up. It's your last chance for the season, obviously, if you know how the schedule rolls. Listen to RBKD this afternoon. Listen to the triple option. They will give you the keyword. You text in, and you will be entered to get those tickets. Thanks to Randall's for being such a great partner of ours and enabling us to get that for you. All right, let's jump into the crap bag, and we'll talk quarterbacks in the draft.
Chad's crap bag.
Crap bag. If you need an easy way to remember it, just think of a bag of crap.
It's brought to you by AV Consultations, 255-8678, 255-8678, or go to avconsultations.com. Yesterday, we were having a little bit of a conversation about the drafts where quarterbacks have gone right at the top. I decided to officially look up the numbers just so we could have, hopefully, a more intelligent conversation on it, but kind of fascinating once you look at it. So, Trey, to work backwards, you asked me, has there ever been a draft where 4 quarterbacks were taken to start the draft? I went all the way back to 1966, which would be the first combined draft, first NFL draft, if you will. I wasn't messing with any AFL stuff. So 56 years worth of the draft is what I'm looking at. And there has not been a draft where it's 1, 2, 3, 4 quarterback. And by the way,
that does not shock me. We talked about that yesterday, and it would have surprised me had you said, oh, yeah, back in even 1954, there were 4 straight quarterbacks drafted.
And if the reports today are true, we are not going to see it in 2021. Reports out of Atlanta are starting to say that it is Kyle Pitts at 4, that the Falcons will take Pitts at 4, and that is starting to become a little more. So maybe by the time we get to tomorrow evening, it's going to be more like, was it Cincinnati at 5 is on the clock more than anything else? Because apparently it's quarterback, and then maybe Kyle Pitts. But we'll see. So it's never happened 4 in a row. It has happened twice where 3 quarterbacks were taken to start the draft. We referenced this yesterday. The last time was 1999. It was Tim Couch, Eric Crouch, Tim Couch. Tim Couch, Donovan McNabb, Akili Smith. We all know which one of those turned into a real quarterback. It's not Couch, and it's obviously not Smith. So McNabb's your one guy there. 1971 is the only other time it happened. Jim Plunkett, followed by Archie Manning, followed by Dan Pastorini. You could talk about the good side. There's good things, I guess, about all those guys. Manning's career was obviously tough based on where he was. Pastorini had some success with the Oilers. Ultimately, Plunkett's your guy. I was wrong yesterday. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he is a multiple Super Bowl winner. So in that case, you had, pretty good picks there. But maybe nothing that was a total badass. So, Trey, there are the other instances to me are in the kind of the double situation. There are 5 drafts where 1 and 2 have been quarterbacks. And my argument is there's not one instance where both of them were badasses. Here we go. You ready?
Okay, let's hear them.
1993 is the first time it happened. Drew Bledsoe, Rick Meyer. I think we all know where that ended up.
Yeah, Rick Meyer was a Cowboy for a little bit, too.
Oh, God, was he? I guess he might have been. Everybody was a Cowboy during one period.
Did Meyer get drafted by Seattle? Am I remembering that correctly?
Correct. That was Seattle, and never really became much. Bledsoe obviously had a solid career. 1998, the famous one, Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf. One's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
The other one's Ryan Leaf.
The other one has fortunately come out the other side.
Sure. This one has an injury element to it. 2012 is Luck and RG3.
Yeah, but that one looked good early on, that both guys might turn into something. Unfortunately, RG3 did not quite pan out, although he is still in the league as a backup in Baltimore.
He is. 2015, Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. Both backups now on different teams. Except maybe Jameis now would be considered a starter in New Orleans, coming back on a different team. But obviously a different team that drafted him.
I almost hate to even suggest this, but the book isn't totally closed on that one yet.
You're right. And then
it's getting close.
Yeah, it's getting there. Mariota's probably is. Mariota's might be closed.
See, he's still in the league, and he got one chance last year. Now, he didn't do much of it with Vegas, but I forget where he is now. But he is still a part of the league, too.
And then in 2016, the 5th time it happened was Goff and Wentz, and each of them are now with a different team.
Another one that looked very promising through a couple of years, but now is a big question mark.
So there's just no guarantee on those others. And then, Trey, to be fair, here are the instances real quick where a quarterback went 1 overall, just one guy, right? Going backwards. Burrow, got to wait and see.
I feel good about him.
Kyler Murray.
Feel good about him.
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Cam Newton at the time, and what he turned into. That's a solid career. Sam Bradford.
Nope.
That's where it gets
injuries.
Matt Stafford.
Matt Stafford.
Different team, but a pretty good quarterback.
He's been a solid QB.
Jamarcus Russell. I think we all know the answer there.
But he could throw the ball 85 yards off of his butt, Chad.
That's
How did
true.
that not translate to the NFL?
There was a 5-year run where quarterbacks went first overall. It ended with Alex Smith in 2005.
Solid option. Mm-hmm. Better than people were giving credit for early on, too. See, that's a great example of a guy that even if he doesn't necessarily turn into that dude through the first few years, don't give up on him just yet.
Eli Manning went first overall, technically.
2 Super Bowls.
Carson Palmer. Yeah.
Great career. He had a great career.
Did he?
Now, he was stuck in Cincinnati most of the time, but numbers-wise, he had a great career.
Had some good numbers. Derek Carr. Tough. Michael Vick in 2001. Things derailed that, but
Michael Vick was on path to do some great things in this league.
He looked legitimate as a number 1 pick when he was playing. I think we can agree with that. Jeff George in 90.
His career was okay, right?
It was all right. Okay. But maybe didn't quite live up to number 1. Troy
Peaks playing knee basketball with Bucky in his basement.
That's right. 89 is Troy Aikman. That's a no-brainer.
Failure.
Right. Testaverde in 87. Didn't quite end up. It was a journeyman career.
Decent.
Not number 1, though.
Did he get drafted by the Bucks?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Tampa. Elway in 83.
Yeah.
Obviously became a stud. Steve Bartkowski in 75 and Bradshaw in 70.
Bradshaw in 70, yes. I don't even know who the other guy is, so I'm saying no.
Look how young that makes you. Steve Bartkowski playing for the Falcons back in the day. So 25 out of 56 years, a quarterback was taken first overall, so you're just under 1 out of every 2. So if it does go 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be history. And if it goes 1, 2, 3, that would only be the 3rd time in the draft's history where you would get quarterbacks to start. Because normally there's just something you can't ignore. There's a running back you can't ignore. There's a badass tackle you can't ignore. Let's remember a guy like Orlando Pace existed back in the day where you're like, well, you're going to take him, right? Yes. He went 1 overall because he was that good.
There was just a trade made. Denver Broncos just acquired Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not sure what else is a part of that deal. We'll bring those details on the other side.
All right, we'll try to double-check that one for you. More draft talk coming, plus Justin Wells of Inside Texas. He's a Cowboys fan. What does he want Jerry to do at 10? We'll ask him that, plus talk about the Texas spring game. Don't move. It's The Horn.